Hey, this is Dan Jacobs from the band Atreyu, and you are live in Limbo.
This is Andreas from liveinlimbo.com. I'm here with Dan Jacobs of the band Atreyu, all the way from California. The newest album, Long Live, just came out last month, and it's a big celebration, I guess, because the band's back together. You've got a new album. How's everything been?
It's been awesome. You know, we've been away for about 3-4 years. Haven't put an album out since 2009, so good 6 years now. So you don't really know what to expect when you come back after that long, but it's been amazing so far. Everyone's been really cool. There's been a lot of people coming out to the shows and going nuts and singing along to the old songs and even the new songs. So we're pumped. We're just stoked to be here.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this your first time in Toronto or Canada at all since the reunion, or have you been here before or since?
Our last time here, we played Amnesia Rock Festival. Other than that, we haven't been here since probably 2010.
Wow, so that's quite a while. Well, welcome back, and I hope today goes well. I mean, you've got like a massive lineup over there. You got people, I guess, waiting to have albums signed just over there, but I won't direct them to you here. You're fine. But nonetheless, welcome back, and that getup you have with the headband and like the buddy guitar, is that still going?
Yeah, it's kind of my steez. I mean, I just wear it for stage and stuff. It's a hachimake. It's for like, you know, going into battle or doing stuff where you need to be, you know, courageous. And I don't know, I just feel like, you know, going on stage, you got to conquer, you got to take over, you know. So I try to have that mentality when I go on stage. So I feel like it's like my thing. And then I just like really flashy looking guitars, especially when it comes to putting on a show. I feel like I want my guitars to put on a show themselves. And yeah.
Speaking of conquering, I mean, the newest album has done really well, actually. And a lot of people are saying it's some of the best material you've had, or the band has had, in a really long time. I'm guessing the hiatus was to help with that. But at the same time, did any of the material come from you guys separately from the hiatus? Like, was the stuff that you brought to the table once you got back together, or was everything just from scratch as soon as the band got back together?
I mean, 90% of it, I'd say, was all from scratch. There's a little riffs here and there. I mean, throughout all our albums, we're always trying to squeeze in maybe a really, really awesome like riff or part or something that we had that maybe just wouldn't work in any of the songs on the previous album. There's actually a part in the song "A Bitter Broken Memory," the whole bridge part. I think I wrote that part for Death Grip on Yesterday, or maybe even Lead Sails, and I've been trying to get it on an album. It hasn't just fit anywhere for whatever reason, and then it finally fit into that song. So it's a great part. So it's you know, sometimes we have something in our back pocket, but usually we try to do something fresh and kind of in the moment.
Now, you mentioned past albums of yours, especially something like Lead Sails, Paper Anchor, that kind of deviated a lot from what you guys were doing in the grander scheme of things. Your band was one of the many that broke out of like this metalcore scene in California, like along with a whole slew of other bands. And a lot of them have done the same thing, where they've deviated from the norm, or they've changed it up, or they've revisited what they've done before. How does that come to play? Is it a conscious decision, or is it just because I know you're heavily into like 80s rock, for instance? Is it just an urge to move on and see what else is out there?
Yeah, I mean, our whole journey was very much, you know, trying to find ourselves. I mean, every album you can hear us constantly evolving and trying to be like, what is Atreyu? Like, what's the next move? Like, what are we trying to grow into here? And I think even part of that, you know, having that hiatus, I think that was part of the growth. Like, the next album needed to be taking time off kind of thing. And I think by the time that was all done and we came back, we felt like we'd kind of come full circle and found ourselves inside and outside of the band. And we knew what we were all best at and felt the most comfortable with. And that's why this album, I feel, is so like passionate and just, it's so much of our best foot forward, because that's all our intentions were. Like, let's just do what we're all best at. And the most noticeable thing I'd say is probably Alex's vocals. He didn't sing at all on this album. He just screams the whole time, and just like he did on our first few records. So that's definitely something that's very noticeable as far as kind of coming full circle and what he feels the most comfortable with.
So referring back to your heyday, let's say, you know, like your earlier albums, the name Atreyu is possibly more relevant than ever. I mean, it's a character from the Neverending Story. Atreyu are back here, and they're better than ever. So did the name get chosen for that specific reason because you felt the music would live on, or is it just something that you said, hey, we love the Neverending Story, this stuff is pretty cool, let's make it our name?
Um, I mean, we changed our name to Atreyu back in 2000, or sorry, 1999, and it was more so a lot of bands that we were into at the time. All were getting their names from sci-fi and horror movies and fantasy movies and TV shows and things like that. So we were a band called Retribution at the time. Our singer Alex, our drummer slash singer Brandon, and myself and a couple other guys, we were called Retribution. And our music kind of, it was punk at the time, and it started kind of evolving into more heavier, hardcore kind of metal vibe. So we're like, let's change our name, kind of start fresh, and just go from here. And yeah, the name Atreyu came up as far as going through the Neverending Story and naming all the characters off, because they all had really interesting character names. You know, Artex and Falcor and Rockbiter and all this stuff. It's a lot of cool, good metal names. So yeah, it just had a really powerful thing. And Atreyu itself in the movie, and if you want to get even deeper with it, the whole movie, for people that don't know much about it, it's about Fantasia, and Fantasia is like everyone's hopes and dreams. It's like where that's all kind of lives, and this thing called the Nothing was coming and trying to destroy all of that and basically ruin the world's hopes and dreams. And the only person that could save the world from the Nothing was Atreyu. So it's kind of like we're traveling the world trying to save people from losing their hopes and dreams.
Well, that is rather deep, as you just said. Now, do you feel that your reunion and your newest album can play into that theme at all, that you can tell people that, you know, nothing is permanently decided, that, you know, you can come back to something, revisit it? How does that work?
I know, I mean, you always got to be evolving and stuff, but at the same time, I don't know, you just got to do what you do best. And I think with anything in life, as long as you do what you are best at, like, you will be awesome at it, and people will appreciate it, and you'll be happier. And that's kind of our whole thing with, you know, this whole new album and everything. It's just doing everything that we love, and not listening to anybody else around us and their opinions or anything. It's just like, let's just do what we love, and by doing that, everybody else that loves this kind of music will love it as well.
Now, having said that, as you said, you jumped a few years, which in music is a hell of a long time, and even if it's just like a few years, because it's always forever changing. Now, from when you guys originally decided rather to have a hiatus to now, I mean, the metal genre has probably changed significantly. I mean, is that something that you've noticed, and has it affected your writing and your actual influences at all?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, yes, I've noticed the change. You know, I mean, there's a lot more. There's just a lot of bands out there. I mean, it's kind of, I hate to even say it, it's very watered down. There's so many bands that just look, sound, dress, act, everything the same, and have all these mediocre songs, and nobody's like, no one's changing the game. Like, there's no like Journeys coming out, or Motley Crue's, or like just big bands that just, you know, when you hear it, you're like, wow, like I can't imagine listening to this anywhere other than in a stadium or an arena. Like, it's just so big and, you know, timeless, and nobody really does that anymore, you know? And so I think for us, you know, like we listen to what's going on, what's relevant, because, you know, I mean, we want to kind of have our, you know, our foot on the pulse or whatever, our finger on the pulse. But at the same time, our influences don't come from anything that's going on now. And we try to always keep it that way, because the last thing we want to do is just start sounding like all these other bands out there that are not that rad.
Now, aside from influences, are you actually listening to anything that's out right now, or is that as well unenjoyable?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff I love. A lot of the newer metal, I don't listen to that much newer metal. There are some bands that do some decent stuff, but for the most part, like, I've been listening a lot to, like, I don't know, Mariachi El Bronx, or that band Magic. They're just kind of, you know, poppy, I don't know, kind of reggae, rock, whatever, Police kind of vibe.
Kind of.
I don't know. I just like kind of good feeling, like kind of chill music, you know, just stuff that like you can vibe to and relax and stuff, and especially being in a metal band. And there's so many things that I do in my life that are very intense, and it's nice to have like that balance. So I found myself listening to a lot of kind of just chilled out jams.
Now, this arena rock that you take a lot of influence from like the 80s and such, there's kind of a bit of a subside with it nowadays because of the way music's going, what's being put out there, what isn't. With technology that we have where things can get exposure, do you think that kind of feel from back then can ever come back in such a way, or do you think it's going to be forever changed?
It'll be forever changed one way or another, but I feel it is possible if a band comes out and does it right, and they really live it and believe it, and they write the right riffs. Like, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, anything can be huge. I mean, there's so many bands that get big where you're like, I can't believe this got big, you know, like I just never would have expected it, you know. So there's a market for anything, you know, if you do it right. So I don't know, it's just a matter of somebody stepping up to the plate and just knocking one out of the park.
How do you approach that then? Because I feel like you might feel that it is part of your duty to bring that game and to knock it out of the park. So how do you approach this very daunting task?
I mean, my whole angle with writing, especially Atreyu songs, and attaching that to the classic rock world, I'll just write like a very like a slightly down-tuned classic rock riff, and just once you take that and you put some screaming over it, it like takes a whole nother light. It becomes this other thing where it's like, okay, it's got this classic rock like big arena vibe, but this aggressive, just throaty vocals over it that kind of brings this modern metal element into it, and just takes you off into a whole nother place that like most bands don't really go.
Sounds good to me. Now, does it ever get harder to do that? Like, because is it a formula that you've tackled a lot? And if so, does it ever get hard to use the same formula? And do you have to ever put like a spin on it that might change it up from a different perspective, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many bands out there, and there's so many things to be influenced by. So, I mean, as long as I can have access to be able to listen to music and listen to all the bands that I love, especially ones from, I guess everything's from the past, but ones from a little bit further back, like, I mean, I'll always have places to pull inspiration from and be able to write stuff that'll, keep that vibe going.
Now, you're not the only person who loves stuff from way back when. Vinyl's making a big comeback. There's a huge need for nostalgia with, I don't know if, like the huge waves of like synth pop and disco sounding stuff, which is kind of coming back. Yeah. Do you feel that that's maybe stymieing the creativity of music now? Or do you think that it's going to refresh it in such a way that we're going to be fine for years to come?
I don't know. It's tough to say. Like I said, I'm really just kind of hoping somehow it'll turn around and it'll kind of push some of these big classic sounding rock styles back into play. But right now it's so all over the place. Everything's very dance influenced. I mean, the dance scene electronic is really taken over right now. And I feel it'll always be around. I mean, it might kind of duck down underneath the underground again, but it'll always be huge, so they're, I don't know, I feel that won't ever go away in one way, shape, or form. But I don't know, I'm kind of hoping music will kind of go back to being a little bit more organic. Again, everything is becoming very digital these days, and that takes a lot of the feel, I'd say, that natural, like, human swagger and swing to music that's just not there anymore because everything's so, like, punched into a computer.
How did you approach this organic feel, let's say, on your newest album? Was that something that you're conscious going into the recording studio with, or is that something you achieved at all?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, with the modern day tones and stuff, I mean, there's certain elements that we want to have that really punch through that might have a not as organic vibe at times, but the impact is so important that, like, sometimes you got to bend a little bit here and there. But for the most part, like, a lot of it's just a matter of, like, not trying to be so perfect with everything, like almost kind of let things not be perfect, because that's way more human, and there's way more feel to that and originality and character. Like, if you take the character out of playing, like what do you have? Like, it's anybody could do that, but like if you want to stand out, like, you gotta have character, some personality, and I feel a lot of that comes from just kind of like letting things go and sometimes not overthinking it.
Now, to wrap things up, hopefully on the topic of overthinking or possibly not overthinking, again, the band is back. There's a reunion. You're back in Toronto for the first time since, you said, like 2010 or so. Do you have any fond Toronto memories that you care to share with us?
Oh my God, I have a pretty ridiculous, the first time I ever came to Toronto story. It's pretty ridiculous, but I'm trying to figure out a way I could tell this not very long story. Basically, we came into Canada. We were in a van at the time. We were touring with Lamb of God, 18 Visions, Chimera. They were in buses, and we were in a van. And we come into Toronto, and we crossed the border. And the night before, I'd eaten a little rough patches of food and drank too much and really stirred my stomach up in a not so good way. And basically, we got about an hour into driving, and I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't get any closer to the venue, and I jumped out and basically just crap myself really, really bad. Like, the first time I've ever done this in my life, where I was like, I didn't think that was a thing that humans could do. Like, I thought, I was like, I'm an adult, like, that can't happen. And it happened. And then I got to this venue, and I was trying to, like, I'm mortified, so I'm trying to clean myself up and whatnot. And Lamb of God has this thing called the pink jacket offense. And if you fuck up on tour, you have to wear this pink jacket all day so people know you fucked up and will ask you why you fucked up. And then you have to sign it at the end of the day. The very next day after that show, we were going to New England Metal and Hardcore Festival, and we were playing with all these bands as well. And we get there, and on MTV2, which was popular at the time still with music videos and, like, trying to stay, hip to the music scene, was doing interviews with all the bands, and they were interviewing 18 Visions, and they're like, "So guys, we know you're on tour with Lamb of God right now, and they have the Pink Jacket offense. You know, has anybody had any offenses?" And they're like, "Actually, yeah, one of the guys from Atreyu shit himself." And this is on like national TV. I'm like, "Oh my god! Like this, why is this getting worse and worse? Like, why does everybody need to know about this?" But it happens, people. It happens.
I guess that is its own never-ending story, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully there's some sort of end to it. But you know, whatever.
Are we allowed to put it in the video because you mentioned it to us, or?
Yeah, it's already. Yeah, it's fine.
Alrighty, well, on that note, best of luck. I hope that doesn't happen again. You've learned your lesson, but again, congratulations on the rejuvenated success that your band has had. I mean, critics and fans are saying that this is some of the best material you've had since the beginning of your band. So, yeah, I mean, congratulations to you and everybody else in the band.
Thank you. Thanks for the interview. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem.